news from Fox Sports.
Doug, the Wall Street Journal has reported that the NFL is investigating Raiders head coach John Gruden after Gruden allegedly used a racial trope in describing NFLPA executive director DeMaurice Smith. This was from an email in 2011 when Gruden was unemployed and working as a broadcaster at the time, unemployed as an NFL coach. Gruden apologized for using the term and speaking with the Wall Street Journal. The NFL condemned Gruden's comments, and in fact, Doug, this all stemmed from the NFL's investigation into the workplace environment of the Washington football team. Gruden's email that he sent was to Bruce Allen, who was the Washington football team president at the time. So as they were discovering those emails, the Wall Street Journal reports that the NFL uncovered this email and then decided to also look into this matter. Raiders are aware of it. Gruden, as I mentioned, apologized for using the term, but the NFL and the Raiders are also in discussions about Gruden's status.
What do you think happens?
I don't know. I honestly, just as I'm trying to gather all of the information, it looks good for John Gruden.
So again, and there's no desire to offend. We're simply reporting the news. It's an email from 10 years ago. He said he called dumb Boris Smith, right? And he called him a liar and said he's got lips the size of Michelin tires. It's the lips thing that's the trope. I didn't know what a trope was, and then I had to go look it up, and then I realized, okay, so that's what it is. And yeah, there's that is. No matter how you want to phrase it, when you make fun of the size of a black man's lips, that strikes at the core of discriminatory, I guess, speech. I don't know. I mean, the thing with Gruden, I would say, this would be the reality is, and this is kind of what he said in his apology. He does have like 40 years of football where no one's saying that John Gruden's a racist. So, a guy can have a bad moment, and unfortunately, it's in an email. It's not even a he said type of deal, and can do something and say something stupid, but not be a racist, right? And by the way, part of it is you can that, and no one is going to sit here and go like, hey, 10 years ago, the world was different. 10 years ago, you made fun of a black man's lip. You were going to get your butt whooped if you're in a room full of anyone who's African-American, right? You just were. But I don't know if that, it's what happens is you'll be labeled by some a racist. And I don't think that's fair because he has 40 years to call on. What will the NFL do? That's a great question. Do you sit him down for a week? Does that help? Yeah, Jay Stu.
You and I were just talking last week about this. Them having a hip-hop representation in the Super Bowl is such a far, I guess, decision made on the opposite side of what the NFL was just a year or two ago. In other words, I think they're going to discipline him and maybe even over-exaggerate it just because the NFL right now is in such a situation where all eyes are on them as far as how they're going to handle these types of situations. Don't you think he's probably going to get a more severe penalty than we may even think at this point?
That yes, I do, but I don't know. I don't know how you're going to go have justice for a guy who wasn't in the league at the time. It was 10 years ago. That's a hard one. And I'm sure if they do it, Gruden's probably going to be in that position where I can't really fight this. That looks even worse. But I'm sure he wants to fight it because he wasn't employed by the league. It was just a one-off email, and he does have, 40 years of the ability to go like, hey, look, a bad comment does not a racist make. I don't know, Byron, take a guess. What do you think? What do they do in the short term? Games are Sunday, so what do you do?
Well, I think he coaches on Sunday. I'd be shocked if he didn't, but I think that there would be more than just a game. I don't know how you can really equate the two. It seems to be a much bigger deal. The other thing about the Wall Street Journal piece said that this whole email chain where this comment was made actually started with whoever was on the email talking about Tiger Woods and Stevie Williams having Stevie Williams not caddy for him anymore. So it didn't even have anything to do with any labor sort of thing. It was a conversation, and by the sound of what the Wall Street Journal said, that this was kind of an unprompted sort of comment from John Gruden. Not that there was tons of labor talk going on in the email, just to give more information about it. But I don't think it would be a game. I think it would be anywhere from multiple games to possible termination in that situation.
You think he could be? I think termination is a possibility. You think he gets fired over it?
Yeah, I think that he could. I mean, if there's more there, I think it's how do you what do you explain?
If this
to your
is
team?
all that's there, if this is all that's there.
But I don't think it's I don't think it's all that's there. I think that this is it's a pretty big deal to use that. Those words.
Oh, and
there's
no question it's a big deal to use that.
Yeah,
there's no question it's a very, very big deal to use that. The issue I have with it would be like, look, true discrimination is if John Gruden treated black players, black executives, black coaches. Now, when he got there, Reggie McKenzie was there. Didn't treat Reggie McKenzie all that well, although there are lots of people who did not think Reggie McKenzie was doing a great job with the Raiders at the time. But did he get rid of Reggie McKenzie because he was black, or because he just didn't think he was as good as his job as Mike Mayock would be? That's a question. But I do think that you have equity to cash in around the league, because there's so many black players who have played for him, where they can go like, yeah, he doesn't really have that in his body. It's a bad look. And I learned a long time ago that, not from saying anything, but just from my dad telling me, like, you can't make fun of, somebody who's black's appearance, because, that's really, I've done this before. We've talked about, what's it called? Blackface, right? So what blackface really was, and we're getting ready for Halloween, so this is actually the perfect segue. Blackface is not getting dressed up as a black person. It's not getting dressed up as, pick your favorite Russell Wilson, your favorite black athlete. That's not blackface. Blackface is painting your face black, your lips red, and mocking and making fun of perceived genetic features and the way in which a different culture speaks. It is completely and totally racist by nature. It's from the 1920s, and it used to be an act, a vaudevillian act. That's not getting dressed up as your favorite athlete and walking around saying trick or treat. It's just not. It's not. But again, the making fun of somebody's lips in an email and their intelligence, when they're a black person, and DeMaurice Smith is highly educated, highly intelligent. Now, has he said and done some things which people don't agree with and people think that they don't make sense? Absolutely. That's the nature of his job. He's going to do some things that you don't agree with. But making fun of his lips specifically, and to a certain extent his intelligence, that's not going to go over well.
I think, Doug, I think the NFL in this particular case is going to make an example. I think they're going to probably overdo it just to make an example that this is not tolerable.
What do you think? Dan thinks he could be fired. So going over the top would be being fired. Do you think he'll be fired?
Yeah, no doubt. And
you think he'll be fired? No doubt.
I think he could be fired. I think it may be a suspension for the year, but just think about the context and the environment we're in, Doug. I mean, all the stuff that happened
in the context and the environment that we're in. That's the whole thing. Like, it's
10
years ago. And again, 10 years ago doesn't make it okay. Doesn't make it okay.
But there's no precedent for this. In other words, the NFL has not been dealt with this kind of a racial issue to deal with, and a lot of eyes are on them right now. And I just have a feeling they're going to make an example here.
So you think he'll be fired?
I think he very well could be. Yeah.
Let's get to Ephraim Salaam, who joins us on the Doug Gottlieb Show. Former Pro Bowler, you can hear him on the weekends here on Fox Sports Radio. Ephraim played 13 years in the National Football League and should have been my co-host of a TV show once upon a time. But, he's too expensive. Makes too much money writing all these other TV shows and producing all this other stuff. That's really what it's about. I'm sure by now you've read the email line from John Gruden to Bruce Allen 10 years ago. What's your reaction?
I think it's unacceptable. I think no matter how angry you get, right? And let's keep everything in context. He was angry because we're in a middle of a work stoppage or a lockout or negotiating. So he felt a certain way. We get that. But when you start being derogatory towards a person that you're arguing with or you're not happy with, then that says something about you, how you really feel. Now, I know he's addressed his team. I wonder what it feels like for Gruden to stand up there as a white man and look at a room full of African-American players and tell them or try to explain to them why he used the terminology and the language he used to describe another African-American man. I wonder what that feels like and how he thinks it's going over in that locker room and how it actually is going over in that locker room.
You tell me. What do you think?
I think it's falling on deaf ears. I think given the social climate that we're in right now in this country and the divisiveness that we've had over the last few years, I think that apology is falling on deaf ears, and I think the league should really hold him accountable because it's deplorable. And if he said it, it's not. You got to realize this. Like when people use language like this when they think it's private, this isn't the first time that they've done that. This isn't the first time that they felt like that towards someone, whether it be race, gender, or whatever that may be. So that's what we know, and that's what we're realizing. Now, look, this isn't the first time he's said. This is the first time he's got caught. So how do you really feel?
Do you think he keeps his job?
I think he keeps his job because the Raiders are on the hook for a lot of money still. Dumbest contract for a coach ever in the history of the league.
You can fire him for cause for this one. You could be fired.
Okay, well, if you can fire him from cause and they can get from under this, first of all, I don't think that's going to happen. So let me just answer the question. I don't think they will fire him. I think the league should suspend him. I don't know how long that suspension should be, but the league needs to set a precedent. There should be a fine and set an example. And the fact that happened 10 years ago, why is it just now coming out? That's what I want to know.
Well, because they're doing an investigation of the Washington football team for the treatment of female employees, and they basically did an email dump, and he was on an email chain with Bruce Allen, who used to work with him in Tampa and in Oakland. That's how it came out.
So nobody on that email chain thought that was a problem.
I don't know. I haven't read the whole email chain. I don't know if somebody said.
But you get what I'm saying, though, right?
No, I got you. This is how I describe it. Like, I mean, everyone knows you can't make fun of other races' distinct appearances, right? Like for Jewish people, if you're like to make fun of your Jew nose, I'm Jewish, your Jewish nose or whatever, like that would be.
It's just a can't do, right?
Yes,
you can't go there.
Correct. No, you like it's not. There's no real gray. Like, well, you could take it. No. We know, right? You just can't do it. Who does it? Like, I don't. It's a stunner to me. Now, the only defense I could have of Gruden is hey man, I got 30 years in this business, and I've never treated any player or executive different because of the color of skin. And if you have enough people go like, yeah, dude, he can pretty much be a jerk to anybody and a great guy to anybody. It's based upon that may save his job, but boy, this is a hard one.
Yeah, it's a hard one, and how do we know that he's never been like that? Right? How do when you and there's the point, when you let people in to see who you really are, right? Then now we have to question everything. And this is the position that he's in. This is the position the league's in. This is the position the Raiders are in. And that team. Look, I'll tell you what. If I was in that locker room, I have a serious problem with John Gruden right now, because that was hatred. Right? That wasn't I'm mad. That was hatred. You could have said, look, Smith is terrible. He's the worst negotiator in the world. I can't believe he would be. You could say anything to really land how disappointed you are in his ability to
I think you would have some support too. There's a lot of people who do not like how DeMaurice Smith he's gotten what's perceived as bad deals. Like we have all this complaining about Thursday night games, and granted, like Christian McCaffrey complaining about Thursday night games, like, well, that's how we pay these huge salaries, but those are negotiated by DeMaurice Smith. Like, there's a legitimacy to not liking how that lockout was going and what was taking place, but you can't throw in a racial epitaph in it.
You can't do that because now you've taken it somewhere else. It's no longer just about how he's been negotiating. Now it's about his appearance, his intelligence level, and everything else that comes with being someone of color in a position of power. That's the problem.
I almost think, and help me out if you think I'm wrong, I think the telling people I was angry is the wrong message. The wrong message. Like if you would have, if you would have said, look, it was wrong, and I was kind of joking and it was a bad joke, that might have had a better chance. But saying you're angry is like, all right, when you're angry, you lash out, you say mean things. Like, all right, not the first time you've been angry, you know? Whereas if you said, because he one of the things that he says, I don't have a racist bone in my body. All right, like, I feel like I'm that way because you're in the locker room and dudes bust on other dudes. And I get it. Like, there are things that are said that normally would be offensive, but when you're with your buddies, everything changes. Like that, I think the angry doesn't do him any justice, doesn't help him. All right,
it doesn't. What happens when you get angry at a player?
Yeah.
Right? What do you say about that player? So what you're doing is setting a precedent on how you act and how you behave and how you speak when you're angered. Right? And I mean, doesn't it look like he's always angry?
It does.
So if that's how you are when you're angry, then what do you really feel about your coworkers, or about executives, about scouts, about players? So when you tied up, I was angry. Okay, now we know how you really feel about us when you're angry. You seem to always be angry. So there you have it.
Ephraim, Salaam joining us on the Doug Gottlieb Show here on Fox Sports Radio. I know it's not as timely as the Gruden stuff, this John Gruden email which just came out. Will they play for Urban Meyer? And when I say play for, you know what I mean. I don't know if listeners know what I mean. It's like they gonna play for Urban Meyer this weekend against Tennessee.
I think they'll play for themselves. I think he's lost the locker room. He's done some questionable things since he's been an NFL coach. Some things that I would have lost the locker room with me already. So this is just adding to that, and it may be the straw that broke the camel's back. Like he's had a history of doing some things, starting with hiring his friend who was the strength and conditioning coach, who himself is dealing with inappropriate behavior, sexual nature, and racial undertones. He hired him. The league was like, "Are you crazy? You can't do that." The fact that he thought that was okay blows my mind. Then he brings Tim Tebow in to play a whole nother position. To me, he's trying to help a friend out. He's not trying to help a team out or an organization out. And then he drafts this kid, Travis Etienne, who's going to be a bell cow in the league when he gets healthy, and tells everybody, oh, he's not going to just be a running back. We're going to make him a slot receiver. He's practicing with the wideout. Like, all of those things on top of his inappropriate behavior as a married man in public where everyone on the earth has a camera lets me know that this may not be for him. This is too big for him because he's making decisions that sometimes we see players make and be like, yo, he should know better than that. Well, Urban Meyer is a grown-ass man who definitely should know better than that. So I don't think this is right for him. I don't think the league is right for him at all.
Yeah,
I really don't.
I don't know if I think it's the litany of some missteps. I also think it's the fact that he hasn't been able to get all of his kind of guys or whatever, right? Like, there's still, I'm sure, a hefty portion of people that are not loyal to Urban Meyer in that organization, because in year one, you can't get rid of the whole team, right? And so if you don't have guys that are all in, and they think Urban's going to get him, well, then now's the chance. Now he's most vulnerable. I think this is a weekend in which they really struggle to get guys to play for him, even if they're playing for themselves and for what's on tape.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's a good situation. And, the person who should want him this over with as soon as possible is Trevor Lawrence. Like, you don't want to just be fumbling around with this guy who may or may not be there next year. You want to get it done and move on in the direction that's going to help and benefit you in terms of growth as an NFL quarterback.
Awesome stuff, E. I love that you joined us on short notice. Thanks for being our guest. We'll listen to you this weekend.
Absolutely, brother. Anytime.